Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unit 9, Part 2 notes, where we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the carbon cycle. All right, this is to give you just a little bit of an idea of the importance of carbon in the environment. All right. When we're talking about the carbon cycle, we will kind of refer to carbon in two different ways. We're going to talk about it as inorganic carbon, and an example of inorganic carbon is carbon dioxide. If you recall from the organic chemistry introduction, organic chemistry is not just simply the chemistry of carbon compounds. It's actually carbon and hydrogen. In order to be organic, you do need to be some sort of carbon and hydrogen. Both need to be involved in that. So an example of this would be any of those alkanes, alkenes, any of those that we talked about in our first set of notes. All right, so there are some major reactions that occur in the carbon cycle that are really important to us. And happily, you know these from biology and from what we've done earlier this year. All right, so we have photosynthesis, and photosynthesis is the process where plants, and certainly some bacteria, can take inorganic carbon and transform it into organic carbon. And we note this as it's taking carbon dioxide and water, and it's going to turn that in to glucose, simple sugar, C6H12O6, all right, plus oxygen. So photosynthesis is an incredibly important reaction in the carbon cycle, again, because it takes inorganic, or what we call atmospheric carbon dioxide, and it can transform it into an organic compound. All right, and the fact that plants can do that is pretty amazing. Okay, respiration, cellular respiration, as you know, is the opposite of photosynthesis. So this is where glucose is taken, reacts with oxygen to give us carbon dioxide and water. And I know that these are not balanced. We're not worried so much right now about balancing them. We just want to see how carbon is involved in them, okay? Now, respiration is actually a type of combustion reaction, but when we're talking about the carbon cycle, we will really use both of these terms, because when dealing with the carbon cycle, when we talk about combustion, we are typically talking about the combustion of fossil fuels, all right, which are types of hydrocarbons. So just for a generic hydrocarbon, I'm going to go CXHY, which just means any type of hydrocarbon. It could be any type of fossil fuel, all right, it could be methane, that type of thing. And again, it's still a type of combustion, or it is still combustion, just like we talked about last semester. So you've got your hydrocarbon plus oxygen giving you carbon dioxide and water. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the carbon cycle and see how these reactions are involved in the different steps. Alrighty, so now that we know the major reactions in the carbon cycle, let's just take a quick look at what I have in your notes for you. I have typed these out in steps. Please realize that all of these processes are going on at the same time. It is a cycle, all right, so it's cyclical, it's circular, but I just thought for kind of general understanding and ease, it's nice to put these in a list, okay? So for my step one, again, this is not a matter of going in order because they all happen at the same time. Carbon enters the atmosphere as carbon dioxide from respiration, all right, so living organisms, and from combustion, from burning. So in my little picture here, all right, our little cow friend is going through respiration. It is breathing out carbon dioxide, okay, because of the processes of cellular respiration that's happening within the cow. And also we are burning fossil fuels from our little house there, all right? So that is the main way that carbon dioxide does enter our atmosphere. Okay, step two, carbon dioxide is absorbed by producers, all right, life forms that make their own food, plants. All right, so those plants that have the ability of converting that inorganic carbon into organic carbon. Okay, so these producers make carbohydrates in the process of photosynthesis, which we already talked about, and these producers will then put off oxygen. All right, so we have, our plants here are taking in that CO2, giving off oxygen. All right, great. Step 3, all right, animals feed on plants, thus passing the carbon compounds along the food chain. Most of the carbon these animals consume, however, is exhaled as carbon dioxide. This is through the process of respiration. All right, and then the plants and the animals do eventually die. I know that's a little harsh, but we need to get through the system. All right, then when you have those dead organisms, those dead plants and animals, they are eaten by decomposers in the ground. The carbon that was in their bodies is then returned to the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. All right. In some cases, okay, and this is certainly important to us, in some cases, the process of decomposition is prevented. All right. These plants and animals then, if they did not get completely decomposed, over an incredibly long period of time, will then turn into fossil fuels. But again, it takes a huge amount of time for that. And then they are ready for future possible combustion. All right. Another step in the carbon cycle that we should talk about, and I don't have a cute little picture on there for you, is the carbon cycle in water, because oceans, all right, and certainly other types of waters, lakes, rivers, etc., are really important when it comes to the carbon cycle. What ends up happening is in any type of water system, you have a lot of gases that get dissolved in it, and carbon dioxide is certainly one of those. When carbon dioxide gets dissolved in water, and this is the process right here, you actually get a weak acid known as carbonic acid, and that forms. This happens all of the time, all right, but because of all of the excess carbon dioxide that we have in the atmosphere, this is happening a little bit too much. And the problem can be when you form too much acid, okay, that the system doesn't need. All right. Acids, by definition, give off hydrogen ions, and those hydrogen ions have an impact on any of the systems that you are talking about. It'll have an impact on their chemistry. When we talk about the pH of a lake or a river of an ocean, we're talking about how much acid is actually dissolved in there. All right. So that can really alter, if you increase that hydrogen, it can alter the living systems in that particular area. Another thing that this dissolved carbon dioxide can do is eventually form carbonate. All right, carbonate, it is a polyatomic ion, all right, CO3 2-, and it is actually what shells, okay, and limestone are all made of, all right, and that does end up coming from, one of the places it comes from is the atmosphere, okay, from that carbon dioxide that gets dissolved in water. All right, so now we're going to take a look at how humans are actually impacting the carbon cycle. All right, now that we have looked at the carbon cycle and we understand the important parts of it, what we want to think about is how humans have impacted this carbon cycle, particularly how humans have impacted it really over the last several hundred years. All right, so there's kind of 3 general areas to think about, and you, I'm sure, could come up with these on your own. All right, breathing. Well, humans, as in, all animals have been breathing the entire time, but as the increase in population, all right, of the human species, so an increase in population, well, what's going to happen with that? Population. Okay. What's going to happen is that there is going to be more carbon dioxide given out, okay, from the act, obviously, of cellular respiration and exhaling carbon dioxide. So that's going to cause an increase in CO2 levels. We're interested in how humans are impacting the amount of carbon dioxide that is found in the environment. Well, number 2 is really the biggie. Sure, there's more of us. The human population has increased dramatically, all right? But what we have done that has had the greatest impact is certainly combustion, all right? And this is through generally combustion engines. All right, so this is the burning of fossil fuels, right? Okay, and the burning of those fossil fuels, whether it is for cars or planes or for heating or for cooking, all of those will certainly increase the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Okay. Another thing that humans have had a huge impact on is deforestation. We are taking more and more plants away, plants that have the ability to use up that carbon dioxide and give us more oxygen. So with deforestation, what we're actually doing is we're decreasing the oxygen input, and we will increase the CO2 because of the fact that there are not as many plants to take in that carbon dioxide and transform it into glucose for us. Okay. All right. Another area that is important, certainly, and I'm sure you've heard about it, is greenhouse gases. And carbon dioxide, being so important in the carbon cycle, is an example of a greenhouse gas. All right, greenhouse gases, why we do talk about them, why they have such an impact, is they actually trap heat within our atmosphere, and they are going to cause a general change, or can cause a general change in temperature, and therefore can cause climate change. So let's go over the major greenhouse gases. There are certainly some minor greenhouse gases, but you're just going to be responsible for the major ones. And these are carbon dioxide, all right, which we know is CO2, okay. Methane, which we now know from our organic naming is CH4, okay. We have nitrous oxide or dinitrogen monoxide. They mean the same thing, okay. Nitrous oxide, which is N2O. Okay. We have what are known as halogen, and we know our halogens are group 17, halogen containing gases. All right, also known, an example of these are chlorofluorocarbons, otherwise known as CFCs, and you may have heard of those before. All right, so they have a major impact on the environment, okay? And finally, one we may not think of, but actually water vapor is a greenhouse gas, technically. Okay, so those are your 5 kind of major greenhouse gases, and it's not to say that any one of these individually is bad, but an excess of them in the atmosphere does trap heat and can cause climate change. All right, have a good one.